It's finally here. We don't have to talk about Iowa State men's basketball losing 3 in a row today. No. The football schedule has dropped. We can talk about it, analyze it in every single which way. Get super pumped up for today's episode of Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every day and making this your first watch or listen. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. It's going to be a main point of emphasis today as we got the football schedule. It's finally within our grasp, and football season is within our vision. Before we get down into the nitty-gritty of the football schedule, and then we'll talk about the upcoming women's game as well. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Ladies and gentlemen, I couldn't be more thrilled. We get to talk football right now, and it's actually, honestly, really good news. We're not talking about, is Matt Campbell going to leave? Is Noah Pauley going to leave? Is the Iowa State football program completely in shambles? Is Rocco Becht on his way out? All things that have come out of my mouth almost against my will, things I don't want to have to be saying. But no, now we're sitting here. These are the 12 games that Iowa State will play in football this season, and I'm going to say it right now. I think 11-1, extremely attainable. 12-0, it's actually in the cards. It's actually in the cards. And as I break it down, off the bat, you're probably just saying this guy's just super hyped up. Maybe had a bowl of Lucky Charms before this, feeling a little wild, and he's just kind of saying things. No. When I break these things down for you, this is a very attainable a schedule. This is a very gettable schedule for the Cyclones here. And it's thrilling. It really is to look at this, to see the success that the team had last year, and where could this team go? Probably to, we could ascend to some pretty tall heights here. It's exciting. It really is. So let's just talk about it. Obviously, everyone knows by now Iowa State will be taking on Kansas State in Dublin, Ireland. And it's going to be, Farmageddon, but it's across the pond. And what does that mean? Really, when I look at that, well, we've known this, of course. I just haven't had a chance to talk about it. When I look at that, I just hope we don't see like Florida State kind of situation occur here. Okay. Now, obviously, the Florida State situation and then this year's Iowa State situation being a little bit different. Both teams left out of the playoff, though. So if you want to look at it like that, then you go over and you play, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Iowa State, Kansas State. Let's just hope that things go better than things did for Florida State. Let's just leave it at that. So that Kansas State game in Ireland, going to be fun, going to be exciting. Get to show, obviously Ireland knows football. It's big overseas, but this is kind of one of those games where it's literally like, this is football, right? This is Big 12 football, which Big 12 football is kind of just football. You got your Big 10 football, your SEC football. Big 12 football is just like, that's football. I would just, if I want to show someone football, I'd be like, hey, look at this. This is the Big 12 conference. This is football. And I think they'd be like, okay, I understand football now. You see the SEC, it'd be a different thing, or the Big 10. They'd be like, oh, they just run it and blitz all the time. No, it's not the Big 12. That being said, a little bit of like, here's the heart of the nation in Dublin. That'll be fun. Okay, I'm not doing necessarily predictions at this time, just breaking through all 12 games. Then you've got South Dakota at home. So you come back from the road trip and you're at home. And I'm just going to mention right away, obviously, you play the Kansas State game. That's a week 0 game, effectively, on the 23rd of August. So we get Iowa State football a little bit sooner than a lot of fan bases, I suppose, get to see their teams play this season, which is obviously super exciting. Love to see them play early. What does that mean? However, they get an extra bye week in there. So they'll play, K-State, then Fresno State, then South Dakota at home. I don't know why I said Fresno State. I was just looking at Kansas. The grid that the Big 12 sent me was pretty elaborate. So just go back to this. South Dakota, then you play Iowa and Arkansas State. Then you have a bye right away. So 4 games in, boom, bye. Then you go another 3, boom, bye. Then 3, boom, bye. I am actually a huge fan of this. Just looking at this massive Big 12 schedule here, I mean, like a UCF, you go 2, 5, and 5 is how your season is split up. Iowa State this season is going to be looking like 4, 3, 3, 2. I love it. I just I don't know, man. There's pros and cons to buys. You can go about it however you really want to. Buys can eliminate momentum. They can give guys time to get healthy again. You never know. Buys either come at the worst time or the best time. It feels like, and honestly, more times than not, it is the best time. But you don't know what that situation is beforehand. It's not like I know how things are going to go after Arkansas State. I'm just saying that at this point in time, I like the way that this schedule is split up. I like that it's pretty methodical. The only other way that this could have been split is Arkansas State is after the bye, and then you push everything back and you go 3-3-3-3. But no, it's 4-3-3-2. Let's just get that out of the way. So then, obviously, as I mentioned, it'll be Kansas State in Ireland, neutral site, South Dakota at home, and then this is the one we always talk about. This is the game we always mention. Iowa, we get it at home this year. Defend the Cyhawk Trophy. I can't wait. Can't wait. I love me some good Cyhawk. I just love it. I love when it's A's, baby. We bring the heat. I love that game. Then you play Arkansas State. So Kansas State, South Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas State. You're in Dublin, so kind of away, but it's neutral. Home, away. Then what do you have to start conference play? You'll start it off with Arizona at home. Where does Arizona go? No one really knows at this point. I'm putting them kind of at the lower half of the Big 12, but I mean, we've seen teams like Arizona State. Obviously I'll do a deeper dive on this schedule and I'll kind of get a bit of an idea of where I think teams will land. But as my initial impression, I think Arizona will be on the lower end, but either way, it's at home. Then you have Cincinnati on the road and Colorado on the road back to back. Cincinnati, what do they have? Chile. And then Colorado, what are they going to be without a Shedeur, without a Travis? Like, who is Colorado? They'll have to figure that out. And then you come back for arguably 2 of the toughest games in BYU, which will be a homecoming game at home, obviously, and then Arizona State at home rematch, of the Big 12 title conference championship game, whatever you want to call it, that happened in Arlington. Heartbreaker, obviously, for myself. Not that it was close by any means, and nothing on the Arizona basketball game, which I've talked ad nauseum about, but still hurts. And so then you get through those 2 at home. You go on the road to TCU. Beautiful stadium. Got to say, seen it, love it. Beautiful. So hopefully that helps. Then and TCU was kind of weirdly good last year, but not that good. Then you got Kansas at home, and you go on the road to Oklahoma State to end the year. And then I was initially like, you know what? I'm not a huge fan of ending the year on the road. I remember obviously Farmageddon this year being the last game at home. Rush the field, you get the 10th win. This is a huge deal. But then I was thinking, we get to play on the road where it's not going to be as cold, provided there's not some weird winter weather thing. It's the end of November. It's gonna be freezing here in Ames, so we get to play on the road where it's a little bit warmer. We get to keep everything jiving a little bit better. I don't hate it. Kansas at home, it will probably be pretty cold. But outside of that, like beginning of November, like you're on the road for TCU, and then BYU and Arizona State are 10-25 and 11-1. That's either getting chilly or still like low key kind of hot, depending on the time, right? If you play an 11 o'clock or a 1 o'clock game at the end of October, it's not like it's impossible that it could be 60 degrees. So we could be playing in relatively warm weather all year here. I do think this is a promising schedule. Obviously, some of the biggest hiccups you're looking at, obviously, in Arizona State, what they did last year, but who will they be without a Cam Scatterbo, who was kind of their heartbeat of that team? Kansas could just completely come in and wreck everything as they did last year. There's always going to be a weird one, right? Like Cincinnati. You start the year off with Kansas State, who is no I don't really want to throw shade at anybody, but it's going to be a tough game. Either way, we'll talk about it more. I got to talk about who will they be facing in the Big 12 championship game, because that's what we're all really wondering. I mean, obviously Iowa State's going to be there, but who will they be facing? More on that coming up right after this. Looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with GameTime Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With GameTime Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using GameTime Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands of options. I recently grabbed a super deal for a prime seat, and I couldn't believe the value. It was a steal. The seat view feature, is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like in the venue. It's so reassuring. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Ready to make your next event even better? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Iowa State football is all. I mean, I'm pumped up, dude. I went almost right up against what I was supposed to as far as time limit on that first segment because I didn't even realize it. Time is flying. It's a lot easier to talk about a potential 12-0 here at Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, than it is, admittedly, to talk about Iowa State losing their third in a row in men's basketball, a team that I honestly think could be very, very good. That being said, that's not what we're talking about right now. We are talking about who will Iowa State be playing in this Big 12 championship. As I was talking about the schedule, I didn't quite get all the way through it. I obviously there's some teams that I just expect Iowa State to beat. Arkansas State, I don't need to talk about too much. South Dakota, I don't need to talk about too much. Granted, FCS runner-up. Iowa at home, going to be a tough one. Rivalry games, you know how I feel about them. It almost levels the playing field. Playing at home will help, but this rivalry runs so deep, it's almost a flip of a coin at this point. I do think that both teams are very solid. This will be early-ish in the year, third week or so. We'll see where the receiver situation lies, what is going on with the offensive and defensive lines. All stuff we'll talk more about in the offseason. We have so long before these games happen, which is I don't want to think about it. I don't really want to think about it. But that being said, where will they be at? Iowa still going to be, they're going to be Iowa. They're probably going to get 8 wins. Is Iowa State going to be one of them? Probably not, but I would, that's part of it. And then you're susceptible to a loss at any point. I can't say I expected a loss to Texas Tech and Kansas last season, certainly, but that's how it goes. And so just looking at it, I do think Iowa State can get through all of these games with potential minimal damage. Maybe you lose one, and I could see them, I guess, losing 2. But either way, they're probably going to be in the conference championship in Arlington. When Big 12 sent me this schedule release, they're like, hey, here's where Iowa State's going to be playing. They're going to be neutral. They're going to be home, away, bye. Home, away, bye. Home, away, bye. Home, away. And then that's where most people, they look at the schedule and they say, okay, I guess that's our schedule. I guess that's where it ends, right? That's 12 games. Well, I saw this last little column on here. And I knew this. I knew the Oklahoma State game, that last away game. No, that wasn't our last away game. December 6th, 2025. Big 12 football championship in all white. It'll be away. Iowa State doesn't play in AT&T Stadium, to my knowledge. But Iowa State will be there. Question is who they're going to be facing. Well, I do. I got to say, shout out to Cam Stewart over at Locked On Baylor for the saying that Iowa State's going to be there. I do it. Big fan of that. So obviously, take a look at Baylor, and I don't think I can say the same. Not necessarily speaking to Cam at this point, but Auburn, SMU, Arizona State to start your season. He says if they can win those 4, they'll win them all. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch, though. Auburn is going to be an SEC team, and we all know how SEC fares in hypothetical games. I guess we'll see how they play out on the actual gridiron. SMU still, I mean, that's SMU, and then you got Arizona State, and like I said, in our schedule, I don't know where Arizona State will land. Potentially, could be a totally different team. Though they do return a ridiculous percentage. I don't know what it's got to be like 80% of their starters. No Cam Scattaboo, but you still have Sam Levitt. You still have the wide receiver that I'm blanking, Jordan Tyson, I think was his name. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just can't for some reason. I have to get those blanks every now and then. And so Baylor, I did take a look at. I'm not going to say that it will be Baylor. That Arizona State, that'd be a crazy one to pick, especially when you consider Iowa State does play Arizona State during the season. Both teams effectively would have to go undefeated. Whoever wins the game between Iowa State and Arizona State could potentially drop one other one. But that's, and the way the Big 12 plays out could totally just eat each other alive. I guess my official pick, I don't know. I almost want to take like something weird. Like, what about West Virginia, right? You bring back Rich Rod. The team's just firing. Their first 4, I don't see anything difficult. Robert Morris, Ohio, Pitt, Kansas. Then you have Utah, who doesn't even want to be here. BYU will be a challenge, and I didn't talk about them too much because we play them at home, and West Virginia would play them on the road, but they're good for one of those a year. Then you have UCF, who is a challenge for sure, but you're going to win good games if you're a good team. TCU, then you go to Houston, and we know what Houston did. Colorado, where are they at? Arizona State, another question mark, and then Texas Tech. I could see West Virginia being 11-1. Maybe just dropping the Texas Tech at the end of the year. Bad time to get a loss, realistically, in the grand scheme of things. But, I just took a look at that one, and I said, "Phew, I don't know." I feel like that seems gettable too. And that's why I love this Big 12 conference, is because I can't tell you what's going to happen here. I just kind of had to pick one out of a hat. There was a couple I knew I wasn't going to pick, but there was certainly it's kind of tough to narrow it down. Who will be this, second in command to Iowa State? The question is really, to me, does the Big 12 have a team that runs away with it and kind of asserts dominance, if you will, and proves that they are like an SEC or a Big 10 as we go into this next year of an expanded playoff? How does the committee view the Big 12, right? If you have a 10-2 and a 10-2 in the Big 12 championship versus a 2 undefeateds or 2 11-1s or an undefeated and 11-1, where does that whole thing land, right? Because you could have an Iowa State who's undefeated, and then, I don't know, take Texas Tech. No, let's take BYU. Let's take BYU, and then they face off at the end of October, and BYU loses to Iowa State, obviously. But then they go into their bye week. They try to readjust a few things, and they completely put the train on the wrong tracks. They drop Texas Tech, TCU. Now they are completely out of contention. And then Iowa State, who is still undefeated, comes back, and something weird happens in that weird stretch. So you get Arizona State. They're actually really good. TCU on the road right before a bye. I could see this conference just going off the rails too. So to answer that question is very difficult. I couldn't tell you who's going to be. Does the Big 12 have an absolute top dog right now? I don't think so. When you look at who was in it last year, Iowa State and Arizona State, then you look at the People's Big 12 Championship, quote unquote, BYU and Colorado. Colorado lost a lot. Iowa State lost their 2 top wide receivers. Arizona State lost their top running back. BYU, low key, kind of seems like they might be right in that. But I'm still taking West Virginia because it's just the way this conference works. So that's why I'm excited, man. I'm excited. This is going to be a fun year of football. I do like the way that this is shaping up. This Big 12 is going to be fun to watch. And come December 6th, I can tell you what, it's going to be cinema. It really is. And Iowa State will be there. Dude, we're coming away with this one. I'm pumped up. This is going to be fun. Speaking of coming away with it, can the women come away with a win over Cincinnati, a conference game? Obviously, we've been talking about football. We're switching gears here. Women's basketball game, obviously pivotal. We've talked about this in the past, but let's preview it a little bit coming up right after this. All right, Iowa State taking on Cincinnati. This one, as I've mentioned, women's basketball on the road. It's one that Iowa State has to win. Absolutely, one that Iowa State has to win. Why? Well, Iowa State's not firing on all cylinders. Let's say Iowa State and Cincinnati back to back of each other in the conference standings. You're here, Locked On Cyclones, our Locked On Podcast Network. Whoa, your team every day. Iowa State 15-9, 6-5 in the conference. Cincinnati 13-7, 5-5 in the conference. Iowa State, obviously, as we mentioned, last five, the lost to TCU and Kansas State. I thought they could get Kansas State. They fall short in overtime. TCU felt gettable for a while, but unable to get within striking distance and take that one. They luckily did beat UCF and BYU both at home, but both right after losing to West Virginia in a tough one. Now, Cincinnati, as far as their schedule goes, I'm really at this point going to ignore their non-conference because I don't recognize hardly any of these teams. Obviously, I'm joking, but no huge names on there. Nothing crazy. Start off the season with a loss to Kansas State, win over BYU, loss to TCU. Those are both obviously promising things as Cyclones, considering those were our last two games. Then they lost to Oklahoma State. They rattle off 2 wins in a row to UCF and Colorado, lose to Arizona, beat ASU, beat Houston, lose to Baylor. Now they find themselves in this situation. Obviously, notable ones, notable games in there. At this point, we're starting to get to where we've seen a lot of each other. So the Kansas State, the TCU, kind of feel too long ago, really, to talk about. Arizona, ASU, 2 games that Iowa State was able to come away with the win in that trip out to the desert. So obviously the Arizona game for Cincinnati, something that Iowa State can look at with some potential. I don't want to say like crazy confidence, but it's something that they did differently, right? That being said, let's take a look at the stat leaders for Cincinnati. Who are some names you should look out for? Point leaders: Jillian Hayes, no N in there, leading the team with 16.5 points, and then Tanaya Hilton, 13.6 points for her. As far as rebounding goes, it's going to be Jillian Hayes again, averaging 9.6, and then assist leader is Hilton with 2.7. 3-point shooting wise, the team doesn't shoot that crazy, shooting about 24% on average. Their best shooter being Abby Holtman with 36% from the field. This is a team that Iowa State can beat. Absolutely can beat them. I'm going to pull up their win over Houston because it was their most recent win. As far as Cincinnati goes in this game, they really saw Hayes and Hilton pop off. They had 41 combined of the 73 points. The reason I bring that up is that's kind of what happened to Iowa State, mostly notably against TCU, where Addy and then Crooks combined for like 60% or more. I think I said 93%, I think is what it was. I think it was they had like, what did they have? 60 of the 69, I want to say. Addie Brown and Abby Crooks had Audie Crooks. What am I saying? Addie Brown, Audie Crooks had 60 of the 69. That's what I thought. Okay. That's kind of what we're seeing here. Now, why does that matter? I think Iowa State can win this game if they're able to shut down, obviously the main point kind of bringer for Cincinnati in Hayes, Hilton right in there as well. But they need to spread it out, man. This team needs to figure out how we're going to get everyone to score. How are we going to get the whole team incorporated? The game against TCU, you still put up 69, and it was kind of close. But realistically, as far as box score, it was kind of a 2v5. Like, just numbers-wise. I understand. I've seen Taman Lipsy play. I've seen these women play. I shouldn't say Taman Lipsy. It's just that he's the one that comes to mind right away as a player that does more than what's on the box score. I understand that. But we need to find a way to be getting something rolling here. Okay. We need to see maybe Emily Ryan with more than 2 points, right? Maybe Kelsey Jones with more than a 3. And sometimes, sometimes it is that Audie is going to go for 40. We've seen that. Sometimes Addie Brown is going to shoot 3 of 4 from 3, 11 of 16 from the floor, right? That there's going to be nights like that, but we also need to leverage that to get more from the rest of the team. Does that make sense? I mean, sometimes you got to take what they're giving you, but sometimes you got to use your strengths to open up other opportunities for this team. If they're doubling down on Audie, maybe we don't go into her and she might get the 2, she might not, but let's take the chance on whipping it around, a little bit extra ball movement, a little bit of, a couple extra screens, whatever. That's what I would like to see. Now, am I a coach? No, I'm not. And Bill knows what he's doing. Coach Fennelly knows what I shouldn't say Bill. Coach Fennelly knows what he's doing. And they'll handle Cincinnati. I'm not too worried about it, realistically. I do think they will get this win. And they need it. This is a win. Obviously, we've been saying this, but this win over Cincinnati is a momentum builder. Then you face Colorado at home. Then you face KU or Kansas on the road. Houston at home. Like, this is a chance where we get a couple in a row here. We go into this end of the season and we're able to make something happen. But it's now or never. We lose to Cincinnati. We drop a 3rd straight. Now the women have the panic alarm going. The panic button has been hit on both sides. So the way I'm looking at this, I don't see how this could only be 2 players out there, because even if you do win and let's say Audie Crooks scores 70 points, Addie Brown chips in another 10, and Emily Ryan chips in 2. So that's 82 points. It's going to win you a lot of games. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And Cincinnati, let's say we hold them to, so it's 82. Let's make it 82 to 54. 28-point win, right? And then it's like, okay, well, Iowa State's back. We're good. We are good. Well, I don't think that's true. If that were the situation, honestly, I'd be more a little concerned almost. One player scored 70 points. Shout out to her. That's unbelievable, but that doesn't give us any momentum. Now what? We got to face Colorado, and they stop Audie, and what? Now we have a total of 12 points of offense. So I just feel like this is a game where obviously Colorado coming up next, but Cincinnati being who they are, you're gonna Colorado and Cincinnati sandwiching us in standings right now. It goes Colorado, Iowa State, Cincinnati. So you're playing about that at that same level. This is an opportunity for both of these games for this team to find out who they are offensively. Of course, defensively, giving up quite a few points right now in the last 2. And we'll have to lock that down. But obviously, KSU, Kansas State, and then TCU, both very good teams. So that's going to happen. You're going to give up points to good teams because they're going to shoot the ball well. And TCU shooting from beyond there. Nothing crazy against us, but very good. And I think Haley Van Lith went for like 28 in that one. What did she go for? Yeah, 28. So, that's what these good teams, that's going to happen. That's just how it's going to go. That being said, football, electric. Women's basketball going to need this win. Shout out to you for making it to this point in the episode. If you're not subscribed, be sure to, so we can prove it's a Cyclone Nation Cyclone State. It's also Cyclone Nation, to be honest. And so you can say you were here before Iowa State went undefeated and won the Big 12 championship. Obviously, that's what we're all really here for. That being said, until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.